Alright, so my name is Tanner Hackney.
My name is Reggie Tankard.
I'm Wafiee Wahab.
And we have done our research project on the relationship between brand personality in cars and the personality traits in men. The relationship between those two and how it affects consumer preference. So I'm going to walk you through our academic literature a bit. We originally started off in a very broad field of personality and trait theory. We thought we could just start there and kind of look at the relationship between trait theory and consumer behavior. We quickly learned that this was just way too broad of a topic and could, consume hours worth of a presentation. So then we kind of narrowed it down a bit to the big 5 personality traits. Still a bit too broad though. We really had to keep focusing in. So we went to Professor Swayze's office to discuss our topic further, and he suggested that we look into brand personality. Provided us with an article by Acker, who was one of the leading researchers in brand personality back in the late 90s. And so then from there we wanted to kind of look at the relationship between brand personality and consumer personality. And we would then tie back the consumer personality with the big 5 personality traits. And just to get a bit deeper of understanding, we also looked into the relationship between brand personality and self-actualization.
So here's what I'll talk about the big 5. So the big 5 are the extroversion, openness, agreeableness, conscientiousness, and neuroticism. Just as you can see, I'm just going to briefly summarize it up. Extroversions are consumers that are very outgoing, talkative, goal-oriented. They are very assertive. You know who they are when they walk into a room. Openness consumers are consumers that let their emotions and their imagination take their feelings and affect their decision. Agreeableness consumers they base their decision on what opinion leaders have or what others know more about the topic. So they really listen to other people more than listen to themselves. Next slide. Conscientious consumers are consumers that are very organized. They know what they want. They're very loyal to one brand. And they basically are competent planners. They go to a shop, they know what they want, they pick it out, they buy it. And then neuroticism are consumers that are very unstable, and they are very vulnerable to others' opinions. They're not very sure what they want, and are usually easily influenced by others. And now I'll talk about how we used an ad analysis to further our research. After I talk about the qualitative research methods, the methods what we did, as Tanner explained in the beginning, was we took 5 brands and 5 car brands, and we realized that we were going to try to tie in those 5 car brands into the big 5 personality traits. And how we did that was through laddering interviews. What we did was we interviewed about 6 men and 6 young men, and we tried to figure out how are we going to ask the questions to get down to exactly what big 5 personality trait they were, and then how that big 5 personality trait correlated to the car, the brand company. And by doing so, we showed them 5 different ad analysis, 5 quick ads through YouTube, and just kind of got their feeling of how they correlated themselves and their self-identity to which car brand it was. And now Wafiee will talk about the ad analysis.
So with the ad analysis, we chose to analyze 5 ads with the 5 car brands that are Ford, Chevrolet, Mercedes-Benz, Audi, and Subaru. Now we chose video ads because they had a bit more of an impact, they were more visual, and they had support of audio, so it helped with the atmosphere and of that sort. Now the first ad that we showed to the interviewees was Ford. The Ford ad was mainly focused on showing their truck line, so a lot of it had to do with ruggedness of the brand. They showed features that were more advanced, tech savvy, and what we got from there, as well as some research into the brand itself, was that Ford exemplified the all-American brand. With relation to the ad itself, it was an all-American tough guy image showing the trucks. Now, the brand personality that we thought that they shared with, or Ford shared with, was conscientiousness, but to add to that, again with relation to the ad analysis, it was also somewhat extroversion. The next ad is Chevrolet's. Now Chevrolet's ad was quite unique in that they didn't necessarily show the brand itself on the car. They took the brand logo out of the car and they just showed the vehicle. Now what we got from there was that Chevrolet in this ad appealed to the more young, innovative, working individuals, something of sorts where they wanted the feel of a luxury car, but at a price that was affordable to them. Again, like Ford, we have the more technology added into the cars, and the brand personality shares traits with conscientiousness and extroversion. Next is Mercedes-Benz. Their ad showed their AMG line on the racetrack, I'm assuming somewhere in Germany, and so there's kind of that sense of history behind their brand. Now, the ad showed that they were trying to redefine sport, innovation, and luxury at the same time, whilst also showing the performance of the vehicles, whether it's the engine or whether it's the suspension performance. Again, referencing to early years of Mercedes-Benz racing. The brand personality that we found linking to Mercedes-Benz is conscientiousness and extroversion. So the next two ads are, I'd say, personally, a lot more unique than the other three that we showed. Now, the first one, Audi. Audi's ad was a lot more outgoing. It was a lot more fun. There was partying. A group of young people were together, enjoying their time. It was all about the moment. Now, what we got from here was that Audi actually, as much as it is a luxury brand car, with their recent ads, they're also trying to cater more towards the younger audience. The brand personality share traits with extroversion and openness. With Subaru, now this is my most favorite ad. Why? Because they had dogs and puppies in there. It was a Super Bowl ad, and it's one of the more memorable ones. I'm sure you've seen it and have done a good amount of how to say this? Oh God, a good amount of interpretation of it. Now, the thing that gains the viewer's attention again is the dogs and the puppies. And what they did that was interesting was that it was all about dog tested and dog approved. And that was really cool. And the whole puppy and dog thing represented family. So what we got was that Subaru is trying to do the whole safety and family values thing, not only for the current moment, but also safety for the future. The brand personality trait that they shared that we found was agreeableness and openness. So now with the in-depth interview, as Reggie stated before, was that we conducted in-depth interviews with males, mainly, aged 20 to 25. So they're pretty young, they don't have that much driving experience, but just enough so that we can talk about cars and their history with it, and whether they do currently own one or whether they do not. Now, what we did was we identified brand preferences from a group of 5 car ads that I've stated earlier, and we showed that to them initially, and we asked questions like, so, after watching these ads, which car would you prefer to buy? And we continued off from there. We also asked questions such as, do you currently own a car? Now, they may have a driver's license and they may know how to drive. That doesn't necessarily mean that they do own a car. They could just be borrowing their parents, or they could be borrowing their friends. But going off from there, we've also asked questions to identify them with the big 5 personality traits. And again, as we're asking those questions, we're linking the traits of the car brands with the traits of the interviewees. Now, additional questions that we asked as well was, if your car was a celebrity, who would it be? Or if your car was an animal, what animal would it be? And now I will move to Reggie for research.
Perfect. Thank you, Wafiee. So yeah, as you can see, we did an analysis. We showed the interviewees exactly what they were asked for their opinion, and behind everything was the research question. Our purpose for doing all these interviews was kind of to discover, are young men more attracted to cars with brand personality that's very similar to them or have opposite traits to them? And how can we ask a question to find out, basically, are young men more likely to become attached to a brand that validates their self-image or the self-image they want to become? So by the end of the day, the reason we did these interviews were to figure out, can a young man our age identify himself with a car ad or a car brand by itself? And after doing the research and the interviews, we found out that our hypothesis was correct, in that men that identify themselves with the big 5 personality traits and identify themselves with the traits but also to the brand was true, that men are more likely to, when they associate themselves with a car brand, they're more likely to share the same big 5 personality trait that the brand has itself. One interesting thing that we found was that during one of Wafee's interviews, the individual believed that he was an extroverted person, but his choice of cars was not an extroverted car. It was kind of strange, so it kind of showed that sometimes the big 5 may work when identifying people and brands, but sometimes it may not. And lastly, I think I'll pass it to Tanner.
Yep. So, being college students, we're obviously limited in our time and resources for research. If we were given more time and resources, we would definitely like to explore this topic further. There's a lot more we could learn about the relationship between brand personality in cars and personality traits in people. First and foremost, we limited this research strictly to men. So given more time, we would definitely like to open it up to women and see how they compare and contrast in terms of results being in how their personality traits relate to the brand personality of cars. We would also like our research methods to be a lot more interactive and possibly even visceral. We only showed people car ads, like that was as visceral as it got. But to perhaps have them maybe test drive these cars or take them to a dealership and have maybe a representative of the dealership talk about the car, that could definitely sway their opinions on the car brands that they're being presented with. We also recognize that the big 5 personality traits can be a little bit limited in their in their range, in their measure. So it would be interesting and probably beneficial to utilize a personality measure that's a little more in-depth, has a bigger range, such as the Keirsey temperament sorter. And finally, we also believe that it would influence our results if we were to introduce the interviewees to some different external stimuli. Most of these interviews were conducted in a very casual setting, such as classrooms or apartments, but to possibly change the setting of these interviews to, say, once again, a dealership or a test drive may influence the interviewee's perception of a car's brand personality. So that concludes our presentation. Thank you very much for your time. Have a good day.